In the cold vacuum of space, where stars glimmered like distant promises, the nebulan expanse was anything but silent. Across the black void, countless voices whispered, schemed, and shouted a single name. Alana Star. Hers was a name carried on bounty boards, encrypted channels, and the dying words of those foolish enough to pursue her. On the edge of a derelict space station, Alana sat cross-legged on a rusted metal beam, her long silver hair catching the faint light of a nearby pulsar. Her violet eyes, sharp and unnervingly bright, studied the display on a portable holoconsole. The screen flickered as her own face stared back at her, framed by bold letters, Alana Star, dead or alive, reward, 10 billion credits. She smirked, though the sight was far from amusing. 10 billion, she murmured, shutting off the display. Guess I've made some powerful enemies. Behind her, a figure emerged from the shadows, a humanoid with sleek, chrome plating that glinted with each step. ZX-7, a combat android prototype, crossed his metallic arms and tilted his head in mock exasperation. Enemies? Alana? That bounty doesn't make you a fugitive. It makes you an industry. Do you realize how many mercenaries, warlords, and, let's face it, idiots are chasing you right now? Alana leaned back on her elbows, her smirk growing wider. You're my security bot, ZX. Shouldn't you be a little more confident? ZX-7 threw his hands in the air. Security? I'm a combat unit, not a miracle worker. The last time someone offered 10 billion credits, it started a galactic war. Alana sighed and turned to face him, her tone sharpening. You think I don't know that, but I don't even know why they want me, and until I figure it out, running is all I've got. The truth gnawed at her. Weeks ago, she'd been a nobody, a scavenger making ends meet on the fringes of the galaxy. That all changed when she woke up in a high-security research facility, memories of strange experiments flooding her mind. The escape had been bloody, chaotic, and left her with more questions than answers. But ever since, the galaxy had declared her the most wanted human alive. Before ZX-7 could reply with another sarcastic quip, the station's alarms blared to life, their wailing echoing through the hollow corridors. The lights dimmed as the console on Alana's wrist lit up, displaying a proximity alert. "We've got company," ZX-7 said, his tone dropping into something closer to dread. Alana sprinted toward the station's central viewport. Outside, a massive dreadnought loomed, its black hull absorbing the faint starlight. A crimson insignia adorned its side, a snarling beast with glowing red eyes. She recognized it immediately, Drax Velkar. Drax was no ordinary bounty hunter. He was a legend, a killer of kings and conqueror of fleets. His dreadnought, the Maelstrom, was armed to the teeth and crewed by mercenaries who would gladly risk death for a slice of her bounty. Velkar's voice crackled through the station's comm system, low and menacing. "Alana Star, you've been a thorn in my side for too long. Surrender now, and I'll consider letting you live. Resist, and, well, you won't have the chance to regret it." ZX-7 glanced at her. "Well, he seems charming." Alana ignored him, her mind racing. She typed commands into the station's terminal, scanning for escape routes. The results were grim. "We can't fight him," she muttered. "The station's defenses are useless." ZX-7 leaned over her shoulder. "We could try talking, diplomacy, or, hear me out, surrender. 10 billion credits could set this guy up for life. He might let us go." "Not an option," Alana snapped, her fingers moving frantically over the console. She found what she was looking for, a nearby escape pod, barely functional but intact. The station shuddered violently as the Maelstrom opened fire, its cannons tearing through the metal like paper. Alana grabbed ZX-7's arm and pulled him toward the emergency hatch. "Time to go!" she shouted over the deafening explosions. ZX-7 stumbled behind her, muttering, "This is exactly why I didn't sign up for the prototype warranty program." The escape pod hissed as they sealed themselves inside. Alana slammed the launch button, and the pod ejected just as the station exploded in a blinding cascade of fire and debris. Through the viewport, she saw Velkar's dreadnought pursuing them, its engines glowing like an inferno. ZX-7's voice broke the tense silence. "Well, at least now we know they're serious about killing you." Alana gripped the controls, steering the pod toward the distant outline of a rogue planet below. Its surface shimmered with strange, pulsing energy. "Hold on," she said grimly. "This is going to get rough." The pod spiraled into the planet's atmosphere, flames licking at its hull as it plummeted toward the ground. The crash landing was brutal. When the dust finally settled, Alana pulled herself from the wreckage, bruised but alive. ZX-7, lying nearby with sparks flying from his arm, groaned. "Well, that was a soft landing." "Just kidding. Everything hurts." Alana ignored him, her gaze fixed on the jungle surrounding them. The bioluminescent plants glowed in hues of blue and green, casting eerie shadows. But it wasn't the plants that caught her attention. It was the movement. Shapes stirred in the darkness, their crimson eyes cutting through the mist. "ZX," she whispered, raising her blaster. "We're not alone." The android staggered to his feet, scanning the area. "Good news, we survived Velkar. Bad news, we're probably about to die anyway." As the first of the creatures emerged from the shadows, Alana gritted her teeth. Her fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. The escape pod smoldered in the thick jungle of Galaxis, a rogue planet whose surface pulsed with mysterious energy. Alana groaned as she crawled out of the wreckage, her legs shaky but steady enough to plant on the uneven, glowing terrain. Her violet eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in the bioluminescent flora that shimmered like embers in the dark. Behind her, ZX-7 dragged himself from the pod, sparks flying from a damaged joint in his shoulder. "I'd rate that landing a 3 out of 10, he muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Congratulations, Alana, you've made crashing an art form." "Shut up and help me scan the area," Alana shot back, checking the charge on her plasma blaster. The jungle hummed with an almost rhythmic energy, a low vibration that seemed to come from the planet itself. Alana felt it deep in her bones, unsettling and alien. The air was dense, and a faint mist hung low to the ground, glowing faintly under the light of the bioluminescent plants. ZX-7's internal sensors whirred to life as he ran a quick analysis. Atmosphere is breathable. Gravity is slightly heavier than standard, and... oh, great. I'm picking up multiple life forms, closing in fast. Alana tensed, gripping her weapon. Hostile? Let's just say they're not carrying a welcome banner. Before either of them could react, the underbrush rustled violently. Shapes emerged from the glowing mist, hulking creatures with twisted, armored bodies and glowing red eyes. Their sharp, clawed limbs clicked against the ground as they moved closer, growling with guttural menace. Alana raised her blaster, aiming at the largest one. "Well, looks like we found the locals." "Correction," ZX-7 said, stepping back. "The locals found us, and they're clearly not fans of uninvited guests." The first creature lunged, its speed belying its massive size. Alana fired, the plasma bolt hitting it square in the chest. The impact staggered the beast, but it didn't fall. Instead, it let out a deafening roar, its red eyes flaring brighter. "Damn it!" Alana cursed, firing again. The plasma shots scorched its hide, but the creature kept coming. ZX-7 stepped forward, his arm transforming into a cannon. "My turn!" With a high-pitched whine, his weapon fired a concentrated energy blast, sending the creature flying back into the underbrush. But two more emerged to take its place. Alana spun on her heel, dodging a razor-sharp claw that slashed the air where she'd been standing moments before. She fired point-blank into the second creature's face, the plasma melting through its skull. "They just keep coming," she shouted. "I noticed." ZX-7 quipped, blasting another attacker into a nearby tree. For every beast they took down, another two seemed to emerge from the jungle. The air grew thick with the metallic stench of their blood, and Alana's breathing became ragged as the fight dragged on. But then, as suddenly as the attack began, the creatures stopped. The remaining beasts retreated into the shadows, their growls fading into the distance. Alana kept her blaster raised, her finger trembling on the trigger. What the hell just happened? ZX-7 scanned the area, his optics flickering. They're leaving, but not because we scared them. Something else is coming. Alana's heart sank. She followed ZX-7's gaze toward the sky, where a faint light grew brighter. A ship descended, its sleek, angular design unlike anything she had seen before. Its hull glowed faintly with the same energy that pulsed through the jungle. "Oh, great," she muttered. "More uninvited guests." The ship hovered above the crash site for a moment before landing with a low hiss. A ramp extended, and a group of figures emerged, their silhouettes backlit by the ship's eerie glow. Alana narrowed her eyes, trying to make out details. The figures wore armor that shimmered with a metallic sheen, their helmets obscuring their faces. Each carried a weapon, but they made no immediate move to attack. One of them stepped forward, his voice amplified by a translator. "Alana Star, you are to come with us immediately. Resistance will not be tolerated." Alana raised her blaster, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "Yeah, not happening." "Who the hell are you?" The figure tilted his head, as if confused by her defiance. "We are the Quorith Enclave. You are classified as an anomaly. You will surrender, or you will be neutralized." Alana's grip on her weapon tightened. She glanced at ZX-7, who muttered, "I think we've officially upgraded from bounty hunters to something way worse." Without warning, one of the Quorith soldiers raised his weapon and fired. Alana ducked just in time, the blast grazing the tree behind her. "Guess negotiations are off," she shouted, returning fire. The jungle erupted into chaos once more, as Alana and ZX-7 fought desperately against their new foes. But this time, the stakes were even higher. Whoever the Quorith Enclave was, they didn't just want her bounty, they wanted her alive. And that terrified her more than anything else. The jungle lit up with bursts of plasma fire and energy bolts as Alana and ZX-7 ducked, dodged, and retaliated against the advancing Quorith Enclave soldiers. Their armor absorbed much of the damage, but Alana's relentless precision kept them at bay, at least for the moment. "ZX!" Alana shouted, leaping behind a tree as a volley of energy blasts whizzed past her. "Tell me you've got some kind of plan." ZX-7, crouched behind a rock and firing his arm cannon, yelled back, "Plan? Oh, sure. I'm just waiting for inspiration to strike while they're trying to kill us." "Great. I'll hold my breath," she muttered, popping out of cover to fire 2 clean shots at a soldier's helmet. The visor shattered, and the figure crumpled to the ground. But for every soldier they took down, it seemed like 2 more emerged from the glowing mist, their movements eerily synchronized. These weren't ordinary mercenaries. They were disciplined, calculated, and utterly relentless. "Fall back!" Alana yelled, gesturing toward a narrow ravine to their left. It was risky, but it might provide some cover. ZX-7 followed, still firing sporadically to slow the Enclave's advance. As they scrambled into the ravine, the sounds of the soldiers' footsteps faded. The Enclave wasn't following. "Why aren't they chasing us?" Alana asked, her breathing labored as she scanned the jungle behind them. ZX-7's sensors hummed. "They're regrouping. Oh, no, wait, they're surrounding us." Alana's eyes widened. "What?" ZX pointed upward, and Alana followed his gaze. High above the ravine, more Enclave soldiers appeared, their silhouettes barely visible against the glowing treetops. They weren't advancing. They were holding their position. "Why aren't they attacking?" Alana muttered. ZX-7 scanned the soldiers again, his optics flickering as he analyzed the faint energy signals emanating from their armor. Because they're stalling. Before Alana could respond, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. "Something's coming," she whispered, a grip tightening on her blaster. The jungle around them seemed to ripple as a massive structure began to rise from the ground. Vines and foliage peeled away, revealing an ancient metallic obelisk etched with glowing symbols. The hum reached a deafening crescendo before abruptly stopping. "What the hell is that?" Alana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. ZX-7 stepped forward cautiously, his sensors working overtime. "It's a power source," he said, his tone uncharacteristically serious. "And a big one. Those symbols, it's Quarath tech, ancient Quarath tech." Alana frowned. "Ancient? The Quarath Enclave is a new player in the galaxy. How can they have something this old?" ZX-7 shook his head. "Because they're not just hunters, they're archaeologists, or maybe grave robbers. Whatever this thing is, they've been digging it up, and it's dangerous." Alana's gaze shifted to the obelisk, unease creeping through her. The glowing patterns on its surface began to change, shifting like a living puzzle. The energy pulsing from the structure felt disturbingly familiar, as if it resonated with something inside her, and that's when it hit her. "This is why they want me," she said, taking a step closer to the obelisk. ZX-7 turned to her, his optics narrowing. "What do you mean?" Alana hesitated, the memories of her time in the research facility flashing through her mind. The experiments, the pain, the voices speaking in languages she couldn't understand. "When I escaped Terra Vera Prime, I thought they were just running experiments on me, but what if it was more than that? What if whatever they did to me is connected to this thing?" ZX-7's sensors beeped, and his head snapped toward the edge of the ravine. "Well, if you want answers, you'd better get them fast. They're coming back." Alana spun around to see the Quarath soldiers descending into the ravine. Their movements were deliberate, as if they were herding her toward the obelisk. "They're trying to trap us," she said, raising her blaster. "No," ZX-7 corrected, his tone grim. "They're trying to activate the obelisk, with you." The realization hit Alana like a punch to the gut. The Quarath didn't want her dead. They needed her alive to trigger whatever this ancient structure was designed to do. "Not happening," she said, backing away from the obelisk. But the soldiers were closing in, their weapons trained on her. Alana's mind raced as she searched for a way out. Her blaster wouldn't be enough to take them all down, and ZX-7 systems were running low on power. "Got any bright ideas?" she asked, her voice tight with desperation. ZX-7 tilted his head, his optics scanning the obelisk. "Actually, yes, but you're not going to like it. Try me." The android pointed to the glowing symbols on the obelisk. "These patterns, they're a power relay. If we overload it, the entire thing will destabilize. Big explosion, lots of noise." "Perfect distraction. And the downside?" Alana asked, already dreading the answer. ZX-7 hesitated. "Well, let's just say there's a small chance you'll also explode." Alana groaned. "Fantastic, let's do it." ZX-7 moved quickly, his mechanical fingers tapping into the obelisk's surface. Sparks flew as the symbols began to pulse faster, the energy building to critical levels. "Hold them off," ZX-7 said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "I need 2 minutes." Alana turned to face the advancing soldiers, her blaster steady. 2 minutes. You'd better not screw this up." "ZX." The Quarath soldiers opened fire, and Alana sprang into action, darting between cover and returning fire with deadly precision. But even as she fought, she could feel the energy from the obelisk surging behind her, pulling at something deep within her like a magnet. "Almost there," ZX-7 shouted as the obelisk's glow became blinding. Alana gritted her teeth, firing one last shot before diving for cover. "Do it, ZX!" With a final tap, ZX-7 activated the overload. The obelisk let out a deafening roar as its energy spiraled out of control, engulfing the ravine in a blinding explosion. When the dust settled, Alana opened her eyes to find herself lying on the ground, her ears ringing. ZXN7 stood over her, his frame battered but intact. "Did it work?" she croaked. ZX7 extended a hand to help her up. "Well, we're alive, so I'd call that a success." But as Alana looked around, she realized the battle wasn't over. The Quarath Enclave wasn't defeated, they were regrouping, and the obelisk's destruction had only raised more questions. Whatever secrets Galaxis held, Alana knew one thing for sure. She was running out of time. Alana staggered to her feet, every muscle in her body aching from the explosion. Around her, the jungle was in shambles, its glowing flora scorched by the energy burst. Smoke rose in thin plumes from the remnants of the obelisk, now reduced to shards of molten metal. "Guess that's one way to make an impression," she muttered, turning to ZX7. The android's metallic frame was battered, with one arm barely attached, and his optics flickering. "I'll take the applause now," ZX7 replied dryly, his voice crackling from the damage. "Just don't ask me to do it again." Before Alana could respond, a faint hum filled the air. She froze, her violet eyes darting toward the horizon. In the distance, the Quarath soldiers regrouped, their movements calm and methodical, as if the explosion hadn't fazed them at all. "They're still coming," she said, gripping her blaster tightly. ZX7 scanned the approaching troops, his tone grim. "They're not just coming. They're transmitting." "What?" Alana asked, her stomach tightening. The android pointed to a small device on one of the soldiers' wrists. It blinked with a rhythmic pulse, the same pattern that had glowed on the obelisk. "They're sending out a signal, and judging by the frequency, it's not local, it's galactic." Alana's blood ran cold. If the Quarath Enclave was transmitting a message off-planet, reinforcements could already be on the way. Whatever secret the obelisk held, destroying it had only escalated her situation. "We need to move," she said, grabbing ZX7's functioning arm and dragging him toward the denser part of the jungle. As they ran, the jungle seemed to shift around them, the glowing mist growing thicker and more oppressive. The air felt charged, as if the planet itself was reacting to the obelisk's destruction. "This place is alive," Alana muttered, her voice barely audible. ZX7 didn't argue. His sensors were going haywire, picking up energy signatures that defied explanation. "It's not just alive," he said, "it's watching us." Alana ignored the creeping paranoia and pushed forward, her instincts screaming at her to keep moving. But as they emerged into a clearing, she came to an abrupt halt. At the center of the clearing stood a figure she recognized instantly, Drax Velkar. The bounty hunter's hulking frame was impossible to mistake, his armor gleaming black and his eyes glowing faintly red beneath his helmet. His infamous plasma rifle was slung across his back, but his hands were empty, a gesture of unsettling calm. "Alana Starr," Velkar said, his voice smooth and oddly polite. "You've made quite a mess." Alana raised her blaster, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Stay back, Velkar. I'm not in the mood for your games." Velkar chuckled, a low, menacing sound. "Relax. If I wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead." ZX7 stepped forward, his damaged arm sparking. "Oh, that's comforting. Really puts me at ease." Velkar ignored the android, his attention fixed entirely on Alana. "You don't even know what you are, do you?" he asked, tilting his head. Alana's grip on her blaster tightened. "I'm a survivor. That's all I need to know." Velkar shook his head, his tone almost pitying. "No, you're something far more dangerous. The Quarath Enclave doesn't put a 10 billion credit bounty on someone for no reason. They're not just after you, they're after what's inside you." Alana froze, her mind racing. "What's inside me?" Velkar took a step closer, his hands still raised in a show of peace. "They call it the Stellar Key, a relic of ancient Korath technology. It's embedded in your DNA, Alana. That's why you survived their experiments. That's why you can do whatever it is you do. Alana's chest tightened as she remembered the strange energy surges she'd experienced since escaping Terra Vera Prime. The way she seemed to instinctively understand alien tech, the way the obelisk had reacted to her presence. "And what does the stellar key do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Velkar's smile faded. "It unlocks something the Korath Enclave has been searching for centuries to find. A weapon, a ship, a god. No one knows for sure. But whatever it is, it's powerful enough to reshape the galaxy." ZX-7 groaned. "Great. A galaxy-destroying superweapon, because things weren't bad enough already." Alana's mind reeled. She'd spent weeks running, fighting, and barely surviving, and now she was being told she wasn't just a target. She was the key to a mystery that could change the fate of the universe. "I don't care what they think I am," she said, her voice hardening. "I'm not letting them use me." Velkar's expression darkened. "You won't have a choice if they catch you." Before Alana could respond, the hum of approaching engines filled the air. She turned to see more Korath ships descending through the mist, their sleek hulls glowing faintly. "They're here," Velkar said, his voice calm. "If we stay, we die." Alana glared at him. "And why should I trust you?" Velkar smirked. "Because as much as I'd love to claim your bounty, I'd rather not see the galaxy fall into the hands of the Korath Enclave. Call it professional courtesy." Alana hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to shoot him. But the sound of the ships drew closer, and she knew she didn't have time to fight him and the Enclave. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth, "but if you try anything, I'll kill you myself." Velkar nodded, his smirk widening. "Fair enough." Together, the unlikely trio sprinted into the jungle, the glow of the Korath ships illuminating the trees behind them. Alana's mind raced as they ran. The Korath Enclave wanted her alive. Velkar wanted her secrets. And somewhere deep inside her, the stellar key hummed with a power she couldn't understand or control. For the first time, she realized the truth. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about choosing who would wield her power and what they would do with it. The jungle grew darker and denser as Alana, ZX-7, and Velkar ran deeper into Galaxis wilds. The mist thickened, glowing faintly with the same unearthly energy that seemed to pulse through the planet itself. The distant hum of Korath engines echoed behind them, growing louder as the enemy ships closed in. "Keep moving!" Alana yelled, her violet eyes scanning the terrain for any sign of cover. ZX-7 stumbled, his damaged legs sparking with each step. "Easier said than done," he muttered. "I'm one fried circuit away from a permanent shutdown here." Velkar, striding ahead of them with his plasma rifle at the ready, glanced back. "We're close. There's a cave system up ahead, ancient Korath tunnels. We can lose them in there." Alana shot him a suspicious glare. "And how do you know about these tunnels?" Velkar smirked. "Because you're not the only one who's been to Galaxis. I've tracked their ruins for years." Alana didn't have time to press him further, as the trees ahead parted to reveal a massive cliff face. Embedded in the rock were the unmistakable remnants of alien architecture, arched entrances carved with intricate, glowing symbols. "There," Velkar said, breaking into a sprint. The group dashed into the largest tunnel just as the roar of engines overhead grew deafening. A bright light swept across the jungle behind them, a search beam from a Korath dropship. Alana pressed herself against the cool stone wall, holding her breath as the ship passed overhead. "They're deploying ground troops," ZX-7 warned, his sensors whirring faintly. Alana cursed under her breath and turned to Velkar. "How deep do these tunnels go?" "Deep enough to lose them," he said, his tone clipped. "But don't get too comfortable. The Korath built these tunnels for a reason, and they didn't leave them empty." The descent. The group ventured deeper into the tunnels. their path illuminated by the faint glow of the alien carvings on the walls. The air grew colder, and the hum of energy that seemed omnipresent on Galaxis became sharper, like a high-pitched whistle that burrowed into Alana's mind. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Velkar ran his gloved hand along the wall, his fingers tracing the glowing symbols. Quorath relics. This planet was one of their strongholds long before the Enclave reappeared. The ruins are all that's left of their empire. ZX-7's sensors beeped in alarm. These carvings, they're not just decorations, they're a map and a warning. Alana frowned, her unease growing. A warning about what? ZX-7 hesitated before replying. "About what's waiting at the bottom." Velkar let out a humorless chuckle. "He's not wrong. The Quorath were masters of traps. But if we want to get out of here alive, we don't have a choice." "Convenient," Alana muttered. The first trial. As they descended, the air grew thicker, and the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. The ground was uneven, with jagged platforms suspended over an abyss that glowed faintly with green energy. Across the chamber, a second tunnel beckoned, its entrance marked by a towering alien statue. ZX-7 scanned the room, his tone grim. "This is a test. The platforms are unstable. One wrong step, and we fall." Velkar stepped forward, his expression calm. "Stay close. I've done this before." Alana didn't trust him, but she followed as he leaped onto the first platform. It wobbled under his weight, but held steady. One by one, they made their way across, each step calculated and nerve-wracking. Halfway through, the hum of energy intensified, and the platforms began to shift. Ilana cursed as she jumped to the next one, barely keeping her balance. "Move faster!" she shouted, glancing back to see a glowing light emanating from the abyss below. ZX-7 nearly slipped, his damaged legs sparking as he caught himself on the edge of a platform. Velkar turned back, pulling the android up with surprising ease. "Try not to fall," Velkar said dryly. "I'm not carrying you twice." As they reached the final platform, the light below surged, and a massive, serpentine creature emerged from the depths. Its translucent body shimmered with green energy, and its multiple eyes locked onto the group. "Run!" Alana shouted, firing her blaster at the creature. The plasma bolts hit its glowing hide, but seemed to have no effect. The group sprinted for the tunnel as the creature lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut inches from where they'd stood. The vault. The second tunnel led to a smaller, more confined space. At its center was a massive circular door, engraved with the same shifting symbols as the obelisk they had destroyed. Alana's chest tightened as she approached it, the energy emanating from the door resonating with her in a way that was both familiar and terrifying. "This is it," Velkar said, his voice low. "The Quorath called it the Vault of Eternity. Whatever they were guarding, it's in there." ZX-7 scanned the door, his optics flickering. "The stellar key," he said, glancing at Alana. "That's why they need you. This door is designed to open only with your DNA." Alana stepped back, her heart racing. "I'm not opening it." Velkar's expression darkened. "If you don't, they will. And trust me, you don't want the Enclave getting their hands on what's inside." The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, and Alana turned to see the shadows of approaching soldiers. The Enclave was closing in. "You have a choice, Alana," Velkar said, his tone urgent. "Open the door or we all die here." ZX-7 hesitated before adding, "He's not wrong, but if we open that door we might unleash something worse." Alana's mind raced as the soldiers drew closer. The weight of her decision pressed down on her, and she felt the power of the stellar key pulsing within her, begging to be released. "Alana," Velkar said, his voice soft but firm. "Whatever's inside that vault, it's better in your hands than theirs." Taking a deep breath, Alana stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. The symbols lit up, and the energy surged, coursing through her like fire. The vault began to open. The vault door groaned as it slid open, revealing a swirling vortex of green energy that illuminated the chamber with an eerie glow. Alana felt the power radiating from it, stronger than anything she had encountered before. It wasn't just energy, it was alive, and it seemed to resonate with her very core. "What the hell is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. ZX7 senses word, his tone uncharacteristically cautious. "It's not a weapon. It's data. Knowledge, but on a scale I can't begin to quantify." Velkar stepped forward, his usually composed demeanor faltering as he stared into the vortex. "This is what the Quarath built their empire on," he said, almost reverent. "Their archives, their secrets, the key to their power." Alana took a step back, her instincts screaming at her to leave it alone. If this is what they wanted, we can't let them have it. Before Velkar could respond, the chamber shook violently. The hum of the vault grew louder, and the shadows of Quarath Enclave soldiers filled the tunnel behind them. "They're here!" ZX7 shouted, raising his damaged arm cannon. The final stand blaster fire erupted as the soldiers charged into the chamber. Alana dove behind a fallen column, returning fire with precision. ZX7 provided cover, his energy bolt striking the Enclave soldiers, but barely slowing them down. Velkar, ever the professional, moved with deadly efficiency. He fired his plasma rifle with pinpoint accuracy, each shot taking down an enemy soldier, but the Enclave kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. "We can't hold them off forever," Alana yelled, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "We don't need forever," Velkar shouted back, tossing a grenade into the advancing soldiers. The explosion sent debris flying, temporarily halting their progress. ZX7 turned to Alana, his optics flickering. "Alana, the vault's energy is reacting to you. If you tap into it, you might be able to stop them." Alana hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She could feel the stellar key inside her, pulsing in rhythm with the vault's energy. "What if I can't control it?" Velkar stepped beside her, his expression grim. "If you don't, we're dead, and the galaxy's next." With a deep breath, Alana stepped toward the vortex. The energy pulsed violently, as if it recognized her. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the swirling light. The world around her vanished. The vision. Alana found herself standing in a vast expanse of stars. It was quiet, almost peaceful, but she could feel the weight of countless lives pressing down on her. Images flickered around her, worlds burning, fleets clashing, civilizations rising and falling. Then came the voice, deep, resonant and impossibly ancient. "Alana Star, you carry the legacy of the Quarath. Do you seek their power or their truth?" She hesitated, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "I just want to stop the Enclave from using me, or this, against the galaxy." The stars shifted, forming a massive, glowing figure. Its eyes burned with the same green energy as the vault. The Enclave seeks dominion, but the power they crave comes at a cost. Will you bear that cost to end their threat? Alana swallowed hard, the truth dawning on her. "You're saying, if I use this, I might not survive." The figure didn't answer, but the silence was enough. The choice. Back in the chamber, the battle raged on. ZX7 and Velkar fought desperately, their movements growing sluggish as exhaustion set in. The Enclave soldiers pushed forward, their weapons glowing with the same energy as the vault. "Alana!" ZX7 shouted. "Whatever you're doing, do it now!" Alana opened her eyes, her body glowing with the vault's energy. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "Get behind me!" Velkar and ZX7 didn't argue, retreating as the Enclave soldiers turned their weapons on her. Alana raised her hand, and a wave of green light erupted from her body, slamming into the soldiers. Their weapons shorted out, and their armor cracked under the pressure of the energy. But the power didn't stop. The chamber began to collapse, the vault's energy destabilizing everything around it. "Alana, we have to go!" ZX-7 yelled, his voice filled with panic. Alana staggered, her body burning with the energy of the stellar key. I can't stop it." Velka grabbed her arm, his voice unusually soft. "You don't have to control it, just let it go." The sacrifice. Alana closed her eyes, focusing on the energy within her. She thought of the people she had lost, the battles she had fought, and the galaxy she wanted to protect. With a deep breath, she released the energy in one final, devastating burst. The vault's light consumed the chamber, obliterating the Enclave soldiers and sealing the ruins in a wave of collapsing stone. The aftermath. When Alana opened her eyes again, she was lying on the jungle floor. The ruins were gone, buried beneath tons of rock. The glow of the vault had vanished, leaving only silence. ZX-7 knelt beside her, his frame battered but functional. "You're alive," he said, his tone almost relieved. Velka stood nearby, his expression unreadable. "Barely," Alana muttered, sitting up. The three of them looked out at the jungle, the faint hum of the planet's energy now silent. The Quarath Enclave's ships were gone, their forces obliterated by the vault's power. "What happens now?" ZX-7 asked. Alana stared at the horizon, her mind racing with possibilities. The stellar key inside her was quiet now, its energy spent, but she knew it wasn't gone. "We keep running," she said, "but this time we find out who I am and what the Enclave was really after." Velka smirked, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "Sounds like a plan, but don't think this means I'm on your side. I still have a reputation to maintain." ZX-7 groaned. "Great. More running, more near-death experiences, just another day with Alana Starr." Alana couldn't help but smile, despite the weight of what lay ahead. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but for the first time, she felt like she had a chance to fight back, and this time she wasn't running alone.